I Don't Get It
Podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the I Don't Get It podcast. This is Naz.
This is Lauren.
And this is Ashley.
And, you know, first of all, we just want to say how much we love you guys because you message and tweet us all the time and you give us so much love. And we feel like our listeners are literally the reason why we're sitting here. And you guys actually give us topics and things to talk about.
Yeah, we had this charity event last night and nobody comes up to me and says like, oh my gosh, I loved you on the show anymore. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I love your podcast. And that makes me feel whole.
I feel like podcasts, you really get to know the person. Like they feel like they know you even more than just watching the show.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because like when I listen to Chris D'Elia's podcast, I'm like, I'm best friends with Chris D'Elia.
Nope.
No.
I think the greatest pleasure the three of us get with all of you guys listening is that, like, aside from The Bachelor, like, we have a podcast that's like for the listeners.
Yes.
Like through our Ghostbusters segment. Like, I feel like we really just want to help you guys enrich your life.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand things in our lives just as much as you don't.
Yeah, and it's like not all Bachelor oriented, but it still deals with things that if you watch The Bachelor, you're dealing with.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was like, if you watch The Bachelor, you probably don't get the same things we don't get.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're all living this world together. And actually, it was nice. I got a tweet from a girl a couple days ago, and she was like, I think your podcast is so funny that I shared one of the episodes with my brother, and now even guys like your podcast.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Aw. Well, one of you guys actually emailed us, and just so you know, we try and read everything. You can DM Lauren and I. Ashley doesn't check her DMs, but you should tweet Ashley.
But I tweet.
Yeah, she definitely tries and reads all of her tweets. And so we got an email to info@heartbrokenanonymous.com. You guys can email us if you have a ghosting story or any topics you like to share. And I'm going to read a story that a listener sent us. Hey, Ashley, Naz, and Lauren. First, I'd like to start by saying I've been following the podcast from the beginning, and I love it. I listen regularly, and even a ton of my girlfriends listen to it. We love how raw and unfiltered you guys are. Anyway, I've been in a relationship for almost 2 years with who I thought was a guy I'd marry one day. However, he started messaging another girl and some explicit stuff, and I managed to find all the messages.
Oh my God.
We
I haven't heard this.
I know.
Oh my God.
It's so sad. We tried to move on from it, but it led to a final break upon my behalf. Knowing that he could tell a girl stuff he'd never shared with me left me feeling so insecure and unable to move on. Our relationship was so healthy before I found out about his wandering eye. He was very genuine about our relationship lasting forever and made so many future plans for us that it made no sense he dropped everything we had only to get attention and sext other girls. And then she writes in all caps, the point of the email, 80-20 rule. So I work at a bar, and I told the guys I work with what happened, and they were all stunned. They were surprised that I got cheated on because they knew that we'd been together for so long. However, they explained to me that although a guy has a safe girl who's the whole package, sometimes they feel like they're missing out on something different or better. The 80-20 rule being that in our relationship, he only received 80% of what he needed to be in a happy relationship, so he was missing out on the extra 20%. But when he leaves the 80% to get the extra 20%, he may find himself only getting the 20%. And then she goes on to say how much she loves us. I think this would be a great topic on your podcast. What do you guys think?
So basically what I got from that email is like, if you're the 80 girl, you got to spice things up and wear like a fishnet bodysuit every once in a while.
And if you're a 20 girl, then you got to like work on your entire life.
Then you got to work on
Then you got to work on your personality, which is probably harder.
Well, Lauren, you're in a relationship. Do you feel like you only get 80% of what you actually need in a relationship, and that there's
from
like
him?
Yeah, that there's 20% out there that you're maybe not getting?
I don't want to say it's different for girls.
I honestly was going to say the same thing.
You guys think it's different for girls?
Because, yeah. I noticed like a couple weeks ago, I was like, we don't really have sex, blah, blah, blah. Like, should I be like doing something different? And the other, this is explicit. Ugh. The other night, like, I just kind of like, usually he's like, come on. And I'm like, okay. But what I did was like, you know, ripped his pants off and kind of like went for it before he was even ready. And he like really liked that. And I feel like that was the spark
that
we needed. That was my 20% we were missing.
I'm going to excuse myself to the toilet room.
Explicit, Ashley.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, I do think it's.
So you need a little, mystery and a little spice.
You do. You need the mystery. I think that's the 20%
at bay.
that you probably lose after you commit to a relationship. I think like that 20%, you're like, oh, no more mystery anymore. So I think the guy goes for like the sultry, sexy girl who may not have as bright of a personality, but like gives him something to figure out.
That's interesting. Well, just so you guys all listening know, our topic today is why people cheat, but we also really want to discuss and dive into this 80-20 rule and see if it's a real thing for all people or just guys. And I think I'm going to side with you guys right now. And I feel like everyone, the 80-20 rule can apply to everyone. Like girls can just get 80% of what they want in a guy. Like there may be a guy that like doesn't express his feelings as much as you want to.
Yeah.
So there may be 20% out there that you're not necessarily getting. Again, what the fuck do I know? I've never had a boyfriend, but this is me. I'm not an expert. We are not experts. We're just talking about shit we don't get. But anyways, I do think that it is more for guys. Like I feel like guys that are in relationships, some of them are in relationships with girls they think, or take home to mom, girl next door. Yeah. But there's that hot girl out there.
I think the only difference is for men and women is like we're all automatically thinking with the sex part. Mm-hmm. And like it's probably what you were saying. Like I had a guy like who was really good with my family and good at sports. And then there's other guy who was really good at music, which is such a necessity for my relationship. So like that 20 is somewhere else. It just may not be sex for the woman.
Oh, right. Like so no one's ever going to be your 100% complete whole unless Ashley finds Aladdin in real life.
Then he's still a street rat.
Street rat.
Lauren picked out my outfit today, and it's so great. You know why? Because it's Olivia Culpo's line from La Tote. If you guys are not familiar with La Tote or my ultimate girl crush, Olivia Culpo, well then familiarize yourself because this stuff, all of it, is beautiful. They have style and fit experts that have data that'll choose clothing that is going to fit you better than you'll find at any other retailer. They basically style your La Tote, but you have full control over what goes into the box. Like you can swap out certain items to fit your own schedule. Like what if you're going hiking one day and what if you're going to the office one day? You can also rent up to $300 worth of clothing from designer brand names like Nike, Rebecca Minkoff, all month long. And you know who this is perfect for? People who are expecting babies. Maternity clothes are great because, you're going to wear them once and then you're going to grow right out of it, or then you're going to shrink right out of it and you're never going to use it again. So if you want to try out La Tote, which I highly recommend, go to latote.com. That is LETOTE.com to start for as low as $39 a month. You're going to have to enter our promo code, which is GETIT, GETIT, at checkout to get 50% off your first month. Just wear what you want and return everything else in the mail when you're done. And it's that easy. So enter our code GETIT, GETIT, and feel fab with fashion delivered right to your door. What do you think when it comes to relationships and cheating? Do you think it's more hurtful to be emotionally unfaithful,
I think we already
or
said
physically
this.
unfaithful?
Physically, I think
Emotionally. Because for me, and again, I think if I was in a relationship and the guy I was dating fucked this girl that was like hotter than me or something, I'd be like, oh, it's because she's hotter than me, but she's never going to be as cool as me.
That's so crazy. But the email that we just read was sad because it was like
she was in a 2-year relationship.
2-year relationship, and it was just like reading the explicit words of sex. Now, did he actually have sex with this girl? Or was he only talking to this girl about sex?
We don't know that much.
That's
so we don't
like
know if
emotional.
Or not.
Because that's what I'm saying. The bad
physical.
thing about this email is it's physical and emotional.
I think it kind of comes down to the level of commitment, like if it's a marriage versus whether it's dating and how long you were together. Like if you're married, like say like dad had a very close female friendship at work.
Yeah.
I think that is creepy. But at the same time, I think if it physically cheated on mom, that would be
way worse.
Even worse. Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the basics real quick. Why do you guys think people cheat? And I know, and there is such an easy answer for me. I'm like, oh, because they're not happy, maybe.
Yeah.
But are there other reasons? And just so you guys know, we don't know as much. We're just going to share our opinion.
Right.
But we're going to be calling a therapist very soon, my therapist, to ask him a bunch of questions. And we'll have a couple of guys on the line that you guys may or may not know to weigh in as well.
Well, I'm super confused to answer your question because I would always say if you're cheating, that means you're not with the right person. Because if you're right,
the person,
because if you're right. What? Because
Stroke.
if you're with the right person, why would you have a desire to go outside of that relationship? That has always been my stance on it. Of course, there have been people who have cheated and been cheated on, that it all works out in the end. But I don't know.
See,
What are those examples?
Disagree with your theory because I feel like some people are with the one and then they mess it up or make a mistake and then they're not with the one anymore because of the mistake.
It's so polarizing. I don't really have a solid theory on why, because I've been the other woman, and
wait. This is great.
Yeah,
This is
so
great.
you would offer great insight.
So I mean, when I
Why
was
did so and so cheat?
when I was
Yeah, why
in
do you
that
think he
relationship,
cheated?
I would be like, he's just comfortable, and I'm like the spice to his life. AKA, I was 20%.
Yeah, but we also
Oh.
think that he was with somebody that his parents really approved of, someone of
True.
the pedigree. We thought he was with her for pedigree.
I wasn't high enough of a pedigree for him in his family, and I still think that may be the reason.
I have
Wow,
always
that's
stuck
interesting.
with that being the reason because his family is really well-to-do.
Yeah, and he never met my.
He never got it.
He never
Like,
got it. He just thought
Wow.
I was this peasant girl.
But
not
so
that
why
it
do
would
you-
matter,
Yeah,
if you
not
were
that it matters.
from a lower middle class or even middle class or anything like that.
Right. But Lauren, why do you think he cheated? Because that's more answering why you weren't the 80%. If that's the
taking
theory we're
yourself
going
out
with.
of other scenarios and me being in the scenario, I just think he cheated because our connection was absolutely palpable.
But then
But
why wouldn't he
physical?
just choose to be with you?
Yeah,
Because I
Because
think
the pedigree.
the pedigree, yes.
But was it a physical connection, emotional, everything? Like
think it
you
was
think
everything.
he
I
was
think it
your
was
one?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then a question to spin it on Lauren, since, she's been in relationships and she has been the quote mistress.
Yeah.
She was never a mistress, people, just to clarify. He was never married or engaged to this girl. It was a 20-something relationship.
But you could still be a
Of
mistress.
course. Yeah, I don't think mistress is the definition of being married. I'm not 100%
Is it?
sure.
I think it is.
Should I
think
Google
it
it?
is.
Let's Google
Yeah.
it. We can all find out together.
Well, the proper title for me.
I
Being a
was-
Fine,
slut.
Lauren Iaconetti.
Yeah,
Just saying,
she's side
define
piece.
mistress.
Side piece.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, I'll
Lauren,
go with that.
now I
Thanks,
want
Drake.
Now I want to ask you on the other side. You cheated on one of your boyfriends.
Wait, real quick. Mistress is a woman having an extramarital sexual relationship.
Extramarital.
Especially with a married man.
Okay,
So
sorry.
it's
predominantly
what you're saying, Ashley,
marriage.
predominantly marriage.
Okay,
Carry on.
Lauren, you cheated on one boyfriend. You were young.
Very young.
Why did you cheat on him?
Why did I cheat on
Yeah,
him?
why did
This
you
in
cheat?
mind, she was 18, so I
Yeah.
don't know if it counts in the big scheme of things.
I cheated because I was in high school and he was basically my entire friend group. So I feel like if I broke up with him, first of all, if I broke up with him, he was very fragile and he would cry a lot. So I felt bad every time I would try to. Second of all,
yeah, I think
he
in this
literally
case,
wouldn't let me.
I
break
think
up
in
with
this
him.
case, it was because
He was
you
Chrissy
couldn't break
Teigen.
up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was my group of friends in high school. So I was like, if I break it with him, then I'm going to have one friend, and that sucks. And so, it was like that. But if I was out in the real world, if that wasn't my entire social circle, then I probably would have broken up with him a long time ago.
Hold on, real quick. I have to tell everyone about Hubble because Hubble has saved me so much money. I wear contacts, and contacts are extremely expensive. And the reason why they're so expensive is because 4 companies control 97% of the market until now. Whoa. Come in, Hubble.
Good insight, Naz.
So Hubble is the jam. It is the shit because contacts are way cheaper. We actually all have a friend named Lizzie, and she swears by it. And she's just overpaying way too much money for contacts. And if you're listening to this and you know you need contacts and you don't have a prescription, don't worry. They can send you to an optometrist if you guys don't have a prescription. And they make it more convenient and affordable because obviously they mail it right to your house. So no more overpaying and no more overwearing because it's daily contacts.
One time I had a contact split in my eye. I was wearing it so much.
Stop. Was it
Yeah.
a color contact or a real one?
It was a color one.
Ashley, you wore color contacts? I did too.
I did too.
What color?
Blue and green.
2000s life.
You can get 60 contacts for $30. That's $1 a day. I'm telling you, it's the way to go. So all you have to do is go to HubbleContacts.com to get your first 2 weeks of lenses for free. That's right. 15 pair of lenses for free if you're an I Don't Get It listener. All you guys have to do is head to HubbleContacts.com and you'll get 20/20 vision for half the price. All right, let's get back to what we were talking about. we should call Dr. Mike just to get his reasoning behind everything. So just so you guys know, Dr. Mike Dow, he is actually a psychotherapist. He's written like a New York Times bestselling book. He's my therapist. He's like on the doctors all the time, and he specializes in relationships, which is why I go to him.
Perfect.
But I think it'd be interesting to get his insight on why heterosexual males cheat and why people cheat in general. Should we call him?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, we got Dr. Mike Dow on the line. Hi, Dr. Mike.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Can
Happy
you?
to be talking about relationships today.
Yes.
Our favorite topic.
And for free today. Just kidding. I actually have a session with Dr. Mike later. All right, Dr. Mike, can you introduce yourself? Tell us like where you've been, where we can find you, and kind of what you specialize in.
Yeah, so I'm in practice here in LA. I'm also a New York Times bestselling author, so you may have caught my book, The Brain Fog Fix, or my next one, Heal Your Drained Brain, which will be out in February. And I do specialize in relationships, so I'm LaToya Jackson's couples therapist on her show. I've worked with Ben the Bachelor, done couples therapy with him on his show, as well as lots of different shows on E, giving relationship advice with Brody Jenner on Logo. And VH1 couples therapy.
So today's topic is essentially why people cheat, and we'd like to kind of concentrate on specifically heterosexual males.
Yep.
But we'll just kind of start on why people cheat. And Ashley and Lauren, do you have any specific questions for him to start off?
Well, I guess like you keep saying heterosexual men. Is there a difference between heterosexual men and heterosexual women when it comes to cheating?
Yeah, there is actually a difference. So the male brain and the female brain are quite different in the way that they respond to love and also sex. And it also affects whether or not and also why they cheat. So we know that men are actually more likely to cheat than women. We also know personality type. If I do some personality testing on you, that will also predict whether or not you are likely to be a cheater. So if you are a sensation seeker, and if your brain really likes that thrilling up chemical dopamine, you're more likely to be a cheater than somebody who is classified as a sensation avoider.
So drug
very
addicts, I would say,
interesting.
like drug addicts. Yeah.
So if you're meeting that great guy at a bar and he's the life of the party, and that's why you fall in love with him, he's also slightly more likely to cheat on you than that quiet guy in the corner.
That's
God.
like why musicians and rock stars cheat. It's because they're like
Stage presence.
Sensation
the
seeker.
attention
Attention.
yes, and
Yeah.
then like lawyers and whatever professionals tend to not.
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
A lot of professionals cheat.
I'm moving to Silicon Valley. I'm over this.
Is there a certain profession that statistically cheats more than any other?
Well, I think you nailed it on the head. I think a lot of artists, it's the same reason why a lot of artists struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
It is that sensation-seeking brain. So really any profession where you're seeing a lot of sensation seekers, you're probably also going to see a lot of cheaters. And then let's also not forget about just this common sense proximity. So if you are an engineer and you're one of 99 men, and there's Silicon Valley is notoriously there's not a lot of women there. So listen, if you're surrounded by straight men all day and you're a straight guy and you're looking for a straight woman to either date or have sex with, it's also that proximity and what's around you as well.
That's interesting. So is that do people cheat more in LA, Miami, and New York?
I think there is. I haven't seen a study on this in particular, but just based on my experience and the people that I have treated, I've treated thousands of people now in my private practice, and sort of looking at where they're from. Yeah, the other thing, I think that there's a correlation between people who move to big cities and being sensation seekers, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a sensation avoider, you're probably not going to want to move to South Beach, West Hollywood, or the Meatpacking District in New York, right? right? So
Right.
if you are that kind of person who's always looking for those cheap thrills, you're probably also slightly more likely to be a cheater. And, also I don't want to generalize. So just because you fit that mold doesn't mean that you cheat. But we know that in studies that there is it does spike your risk statistically.
Okay, and then back to the original thing you were saying, because I don't want you to finish your initial thought. Ashley asked you the difference between heterosexual women and men cheating. So what are the reasons that women cheat?
Yeah, so I always come back to this comparison, and that men are sort of like microwaves when it comes to sex, and women are like crock pots, and also the fact that women need to feel loved often to have sex, and men often need to have sex to feel loved. And, so what we see and what I have seen in terms of why somebody cheats, women will often cheat when they are not emotionally fulfilled, right? So if a woman is not getting her emotional needs met in a relationship, that is usually when I see women cheating in a relationship versus men. So, there are different kinds of affairs. And I tend to see this a lot in men. So sometimes there's an exit affair, meaning you kind of want out of a relationship and you're actually using the affair as a way to get out because you're too chicken shit to actually tell somebody what you really want, right? So there's that type of affair. Then there's sort of this is sort of the guy who thinks that he can have it all. Maybe he's a male chauvinist. Maybe he's, a millennial, and he thinks that he can always get what he wants, and he should be able to have his cake and eat it too, or that he's above rules, or that rules don't apply. And then you have this person who thinks that that they should be able to stay married and get whatever they want, and they shouldn't have to say no, right? And then I think there are those people who are who, and I think women tend to fall more in this category. There are those affairs that are really about, you are not getting your emotional needs met in a relationship, and pretty soon you just get so miserable that you then eventually are likely to have an affair. So I think that's sort of interesting, as it breaks down, men versus women in terms of, why you're having an affair and, how men and women behave differently if they're cheating.
When it comes down, oh, sorry, Lauren.
Have you seen any relationships like succeed after an affair? Like many of them?
I was going to elaborate on that question and say which type of cheating is more likely to be able to reconcile, physical or emotional?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people have and obviously with STDs, physical. I think people have more. They have a problem with physical affairs more than emotional affairs, but not always. I think a lot of women, if a guy has one foot out the door and he's getting his emotional needs met with his work wife, and then that turns into a flirtation and he's crossing a line. That can also be a lack of trust, and the trust can go out the window in that way too, right? So, I think it's just really interesting. Also, what I've seen in my office, I would say if I were to put a number on it, what percentage of couples can recover after somebody cheats? I would put that number at about 60 or maybe 65%.
It's a lot higher than I had thought.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 50, actually.
And maybe my number is a little skewed because these are people who are, coming into my office and really want to work on it. I think that there are some people, and if you're listening to this podcast, you have to know if this is you. There are those people who, no matter what, if you cheat, they are never going to trust you again, and there's a hard line, and that there can never be the rebuilding of trust. And 10 years later, even if you heal, there's going to be this part of you that is still not able to feel safe with that person. And if you really look at yourself and you're that type of person, I would say that that's about 1 out of every 3 people. Then I think you need to be honest and really know that it's okay, that if that is your hard line, if you are that kind of person who will never be able to forgive or trust again, then I think it's acceptable to leave that relationship and just say that that is just a line that nobody can ever cross. No ifs, ands, or buts, and it doesn't. No matter how much work we do in therapy, there are just some people that I found that is the case. But I will say that the majority of the people, listen, I think if you're cheated on, you're initially going to go to that, F you, and I'm never trusting you again. But sometimes I see that subside, right? So I think most of the time, I would say that 60 or maybe 65% of people, if they really love this person, there is an ability to rebuild trust and to forgive. It's not easy, and it is sort of a mourning process, and I think a lot about the stages of grief, and I think it applies to somebody who is, shocked by somebody who is cheated. But I think that if you are asking yourself that question and somebody has cheated on you, I think a lot of couples can get past it. And if they do some really good work, I'm not condoning this behavior, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing by any means. But I will say this: when a couple comes into my office, if somebody has cheated, there is usually the affair is usually information about what wasn't working in that relationship. If that person is cheated, that's usually what was it about the affair that was so alluring? Was it that person was more supportive? Was that person just always warm and kind, and maybe you don't get that from your partner? And if that's true, can we figure out how you can be warmer or kinder or whatever it is, fill in the blank with your partner? So sometimes I use these affairs as a lesson, and couples can possibly sometimes come out of it the other side a stronger couple.
What's the difference in the recovery rate between people who have had full-blown affairs versus a one-time or two-time incident?
That's exactly what I was wondering.
Yeah, so a long-term affair is definitely harder because, if it's a one-night stand and you're, away on business and he gets a little tipsy and, kisses the alluring stranger at the Westin, Chicago airport bar, I think it's easy to sort of, I'm so sorry. It was a lapse in judgment. I was tired. I was jet lagged. I was drunk. And you can see that.
Wait, can I stop you there for 1 second? Are those real? Is that a real thing? Like someone can make a mistake, be with the person that they're supposed to be with, and I was just drunk, or I was alert to them. Like,
can it be that simple as just being
that's
drunk?
What I'm trying to ask.
Is it
Thank
like
you, Ashley.
a subconscious that's much deeper than that?
Is it always subconscious, or can it be that simple?
Sometimes it is that simple. I mean, I am a man, so I hate to, sort of put us down in general. But I will say that women are the more evolved sex. Men are a little bit closer to apes than women are. Brains, right?
This is a certified psychotherapist, just so you guys know.
It's true, and so sometimes it really is that simple. And I think men have a harder time. And this is especially true clinically with adolescent males because their brains do tend to develop slower, and the last part of the brain that develops, the prefrontal cortex, which really isn't fully developed into your mid-20s. So if you're somebody who's in your early 20s and you're a female, your prefrontal cortex, which essentially puts the brakes on impulses. So if you're in that Westin bar and you the part of your brain that is going to, number one, consider long-term consequences, and B, put the brakes on your animalistic urges, that's a prefrontal cortex, and it develops more quickly in women than it does in men. So if you're a young man, you are less likely. And by the way, there are some, I think this is sort of obvious, but there are some mental illnesses that also correlate with cheating. So obviously, if somebody who's been diagnosed with ADHD, people with ADHD have trouble putting the brakes on urges. Obviously, people with addiction have trouble putting the brakes on urges. So sometimes it really is as simple as failing to put the brakes on an urge in the moment. But I will say that our subconscious minds are deep, and it's a treasure trove of what we want, and what our love map is in terms of what we're attracted to and why, and what we're looking for in this world when it comes to love and relationships. So yeah, there are some people who see an out and it represents something that is really deep, or it can be acting out if you feel like your partner is punishing you, if that husband is at that Westin and he feels like his wife doesn't have his back. Sometimes it's presenting an opportunity to sort of get some revenge. So, sometimes it is a little bit deeper, but I think sometimes it really is just an animalistic urge.
That's interesting. Yeah. I personally really needed to hear that because I feel like I'm one of those people that too often assume that everyone thinks like me. So I think if I was in a relationship and the guy cheated on me, I'd be like, no, it's not that simple, and I'm not getting over it. And I think it is important to realize that it could be that simple.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Lauren definitely, our sister, sister.
Yeah.
Lauren
Lauren is my sister.
My sister, my dad used to always tell her that that her prefrontal cortex was never developed, and that's why she had such impulse control when it came to drugs in her early 20s.
I mean, being
teens.
diagnosed with ADD, and I've only lived in the now and what makes me feel good now.
Wow.
So
that's so interesting.
That's exactly the reason why I cheated in my early 20s, in my teens.
But what's even more interesting, Dr. Mike, have you been watching Bachelor in Paradise?
I have not watched. I have watched other seasons. I have not been watching it this season.
Okay. Never mind. We'll talk to everyone
I wouldn't
else
call Dean's behavior, if you're going to go there, something about.
I think it's prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, he's 26.
He's early 20s.
No, 26. That's you're developed by then, right, Dr. Mike?
Yeah, on average, but listen, there are some brains who are slow to develop, and clearly, if you are somebody who it's also a muscle that we can develop. People who meditate, you can actually grow that part of your brain. So if you're just somebody who's really immature and you don't actually work on that part of your brain, usually by 25 or 26 it's developed, but not always, right? So that person may be a late bloomer, and he may have a really small prefrontal cortex, which means he's really not able to put the brakes on urges.
Okay,
he's not cheating though. Naz.
Yeah, totally not cheating. Just in general, but prefrontal cortex isn't just associated with cheating, right, Dr. Mike? It could be like not being able to commit, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also associated with that is also we have to look at the hormones. So it's not just the brain structures, but what's really interesting is that, oxytocin, the cuddling and bonding hormone, we know that animals and human beings who have higher levels are more likely to form long-term monogamous relationships. But when we look at the differences in the sexes, testosterone suppresses oxytocin production.
Oh.
So women have higher levels of oxytocin and men have lower. So, women are, if you're looking at the man through your lens, your female brain, high levels of the bonding chemical, your brain is wired to not only form, when we look at this from an evolutionary point of view, when we were hunters and gatherers, it was in a women's best interest to be able to form bonds not only with your child. Oxytocin production is necessary to breastfeed. You have to be able to relax your body and bond, and that hormone is released when you're breastfeeding, and it's also released in romantic relationships.
It's released when you're getting eaten out. Lauren! That's what I'm thinking about, because you're getting comfortable and you're bonding with each other. It's not like you're going to do that really well with a stranger.
Actually,
that's what I was thinking.
Right
oh my
now.
God, I was legitimately thinking that's why I want to snuggle with Jared.
I am
literally the whole time that he's been saying this, I've been picturing you being like, Jared, come snuggle with me, and Jared being like, I don't watch football.
I know.
Oh man, this is so informative, Dr. Mike. We love you. I need to get to the 80-20 rule now.
Yep.
So the internet says, for anyone new to the 80-20 rule for relationships, it's the theory that says in a fairly healthy relationship, you only get 80% of what you want. Maybe your partner isn't a triathlete or great at sharing his feelings, but it's okay because the 80% of what you do get is really good. Do you think this theory is true? Is it real? Is it a reason people cheat? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the 80-20 rule, there is some validity there. I think that people in this day and age, especially the millennial generation, and our American culture. It sort of preaches, either directly or indirectly, this message that we should be able to have what we want at all times with no consequences. It's why so few Americans have retirement savings, but they have so much credit card debt, right? We want what we want no matter what, and we don't want to have to suffer consequences, right? And so few human beings are, especially I think Americans and young Americans, are able to do that. And I think by the same token, it's hard for a lot of people to realize that there are compromises when it comes to anything great in life. If you want to go to graduate school, you're going to have to give up some of your free time and your social fun time with your friends, right? And if you want a relationship, there's going to be less thrills, but you're going to, in return, get a deep, satisfying, fulfilling relationship, which I would hope that people realize that at some point, and especially
at some point you got to commit to me.
Well, yeah, and it's funny when we're 25, we don't consider the fact that at some point when we're 65, I think this is especially true for males. The hot 25-year-old, you're not going to be hot at 65, trolling bars. Then you're just like that creepy old guy,
That's
right?
So true. Wow, we need to spread this message.
Yeah, you're not going to be young forever.
How much is a blimp? How much does that cost?
Like a lot of these guys on Paradise, they think they can do this forever, but like they're all receding. They're all losing their looks.
I mean, I don't think they're receding now, but you're right, Ashley. Like,
oh my God, half the guys on Paradise are balding.
Oh, you're right. They are receding. I didn't know you were talking about specifically hair. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Well,
do you have anything else to add, Doctor?
Well, I would say that this, overall, I really do believe in love, and I really do believe that it's rewarding, and that at the end of the day, long-term relationships, they're what life is all about, right? So I think that it's worth sticking, all of the heartache that people have to endure, whether they're single and lonely or whether they're going through a breakup or somebody has cheated on them. Just, never lose sight of the prize, because at the end of the day, the prize is a really good one.
Hey, Dr. Mike, are you married?
I'm not. I've been with my boyfriend for about 3.5 years, so I'm in a long-term relationship. We live together. We just bought a second house together, so
you're pretty...
We got 2 dogs, yeah.
Oh, you're locked
pretty
in,
solid.
man.
You're locked in.
And I just want to say, Dr. Mike, if you're okay with me using this, you could tell me to take it out, is you guys were together and then broke up and are back together. So I feel like it's a great second chances story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I think that there's a reason that every romantic comedy has the boy gets girl or boy, boy loses girl and then boy gets girl back. I think that there's an evolution, and sometimes you have to lose what's important to realize what you had. And sometimes there are some issues that only come to the surface when you have that kind of breakup. And hopefully you can get through breakups and come out stronger on the other side. I certainly know that's certainly my story. So.
Well, now I have to ask if you've ever cheated.
I, in my past, has there been cheating? Not with Chris, but, when I was younger, oh gosh, hold on. Let me search the memory banks here. I don't know if I would ever call that cheating. I can remember a couple times I was sort of in an unspoken long-term relationship, but we hadn't really officially closed the relationship. Mm-hmm. So, but I listen. If you gave me 20 minutes on that question, I may be able to find you something for my 20s, because I certainly was. Listen, I'm 38 now. I was a very different person in my 20s, and I was definitely a sensation seeker. And I have, by the way, we know that sensation seeking as a trait tends to, as people get older, it tends to sort of mellow out. And I've certainly found that to be the case with me. So somebody who is
that George Clooney too, then?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think men reach a certain age, and first of all, we have to come to terms with the reality, which is we human beings. It's not easy to be alone when we're in our 70s and 80s, right? We're not hot anymore. It's not easy to be the world's most eligible bachelor. And there are some great reasons. And if you are that sensation seeker, that trait tends to mellow out. I certainly know that that's true for me. And
well, good to know. I'll get married at 65.
Last question. Naz introed this whole conversation by talking about heterosexual relationships. Is there any difference in cheating when it comes to the psychology of homosexual relationships?
A little, but I would say that most of the differences have to do with the fact that it's just two male brains, right? So, obviously there are some things culturally. I think when you have two male brains, you have two people who tend to really like sex with lower levels of oxytocin, higher levels of testosterone, and some of the norms of gay culture, by the way, when we look at gay men versus gay women, some of the norms in terms of men, gay men having a lot of open relationships, which, by the way, my boyfriend and I, we do not have an open relationship, but, and also the stereotype that women tend to enter into these long-term relationships straight away, and men are sort of slow, sort of the one-night stand gay male stereotype. Some of those stereotypes are true, and it's not so much about being gay, it's just about your brain chemistry. And when you have one male and one female brain in a relationship, you have the gatekeeper, right? So some of those stereotypes are true. The man is probably going to be more interested in getting laid, and the woman is probably going to be more interested in nesting and building a family. So when you have, the joke about, lesbians bring a U-Haul on a second date.
I've never heard that.
You have two female brains. So I don't think it's necessarily so much.
That's so true. We're like, all right, I like you. Let's
kind
do
of
it.
adorable.
I'm
I kind of
so
like that
glad
U-Haul.
that I asked you this
I'm gonna be
question because it makes so much sense how different
It's
it
true.
is.
It's absolutely true.
Well, Dr. Mike, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I just love you. We love you so much. Where can we find you? Everyone listening wants to know.
Yeah, so you can check out my website, drmikedow.com. I have my fourth book is coming out in February. That's called Heal Your Drained Brain. My other three books are all available for sale on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble or wherever books are sold. And I have a weekly show called The Dr. Mike Show, and you can catch me on the Doctors and Dr. Oz and all those good fun talk shows as well.
Hell yeah.
All right.
You're everywhere.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Mike. I'll see you later.
I'll see you later.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, guys, I have to take a second to interrupt real quick and just talk to everyone about Beachbody On Demand because it is my new jam. Beachbody is an online fitness streaming service that gives you unlimited access to a wide variety of highly effective world-class workouts, and they personalize it to your needs. I love this because I can do it anywhere. When I'm traveling, I can do it in my hotel room. When I'm home, when I'm at work, I can do it in literally the hallway. And with
The hallway?
Yeah, if you have a break at work, you can go out in the hallway and just start working out.
Okay.
Because it's on the app. So with step-by-step program guides, workout calendars, and nutrition plans, this is literally the plan for you if you guys want to get in shape. And what's great is that our listeners can claim a free trial membership. All you guys have to do is text. How easy is that? So pull out your phone and text GET IT, GETIT, to 303030. Again, that's GET IT, GETIT, to 303030, and you'll get full access to this entire platform for free. All right, let's get back to cheating.
So we're going to go ahead and call Mr. Dreamboat himself, controversy, Dean Unglert.
Okay.
Dean Unglert.
Unglert? How do you say his last name? Ashley?
Unglert. Yeah. It was,
Unglert.
he never cheated in paradise.
He's
He's not a cheating type of guy. So we're not calling him for that.
But he is currently dealing with a 2080 issue.
80, yeah, yes. Exactly. So just so everyone knows, Dean is not a cheater. We don't think he's a cheater. We are calling him to get his advice on the 80-20 rule and see what he thinks. Hello, friend. You're on the podcast.
Oh, hey.
So today we had a big topic. Some listener wrote into us and asked us why guys cheat. And we talked to that about another guest on the phone. But then she also asked us about this thing called the 80-20 rule, which you and I talked about, which is when people feel like they only get 80% of what they want in a relationship. So sometimes they get a wandering eye for the other 20%. What are your thoughts on the 80-20 rule?
Yeah, well, the only 80-20 rule I was familiar with was in business, how 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. So it took me a second to wrap my head around it. But, I don't know. It's definitely, obviously it wouldn't be a thing if people didn't do it. The way that I look at it is, and I think that Ashley and I have had this conversation before, where it kind of coincides with how, say you don't know someone very well, right? You're able to kind of formulate ideas for what that person is like because you haven't really been able to explore that much of them. And then, the more you get to know about them, the less you're able to kind of fill in the blanks for yourself. And so the way that I kind of see the 80-20 rule is you're very comfortable and you get 80% of what you need from your significant other, but there's maybe 20% that's lacking that. I don't know, maybe it's like a communication thing where you're not communicating what you're lacking and then you go out and find it elsewhere, if that makes sense.
So is it normally like a sexual thing, you think, or is it it's not normally an emotional thing, that 20%? You're usually getting your emotional stability and happiness from the person that you're committed to, right?
I mean, it obviously varies person to person, but I don't know. I think it's obviously every relationship is different, so it's really hard to like kind of generalize.
Right. Do you feel like you've ever, obviously people may allude to the fact that you've been in this situation before. Would you say that you've ever been in this situation before?
Yeah, I wonder what situation I've been.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's why I'm asking, because maybe that wasn't the case for you. That's why we're asking.
Dude.
No, I mean, there are so many factors that go into any relationship or any beginning of any relationship. So just because 80% of what you need is fulfilled doesn't mean that there are like negative things about the relationship too. It's not 80% of positivity. It could be like 80% positive, but still 40% negative. I don't know if those numbers add up, but
me neither, because I'm an idiot.
Just saying, just because 80% of what you need in a partner is there doesn't mean that there's still things that you maybe necessarily don't like about that person.
That's so true. Well, do you think it's true in general? Like, do you think the 80-20 thing is real or no?
I haven't really given it enough thought. It seems kind of suspect to me. I mean, there are like so many of those like rules of thumb out there, right? So they can't all be true. But I mean, maybe to a certain extent, if you have a good thing going, you are always kind of constantly on the prowl for something better. And I can understand how that would kind of fall into the 80-20 thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take on it, I guess.
The more I think about the 80-20 rule, the more I disagree with it. Just because I think you have 100% of your relationships. Your relationship is 100%. And just a couple of things annoy you about the person doesn't mean to go searching for something else.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I agree with that in any relationship. I mean, it's all about, and I mean, maybe like the missing 20% is like the missing self-realization that you've like the 20% that you need to work on yourself before you're able to go to that full 100 with the partner that you're with. So maybe instead of going 80-20 with someone else, it's the 80% with your partner, and then 20% is work that you need to do on your own.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I like that too.
That is such a good thought.
That's my take on it.
Hey, good. Dean, I know that you're not like you don't cheat, but do you have any guy friends that you have like experiences with, like your any friends that cheat on their girlfriends all the time, and then what's the reasoning behind it? Is it just physical or is it emotional?
I honestly don't have any friends that cheat on their girlfriends all the time.
That's awesome.
That's great.
At least now, I mean, yeah, maybe in like college.
Give them my phone number, Dean. Yeah. Give them my phone number.
I think that in this day and age, cheating is actually becoming less of a thing because less people are committing. So if you're going to go ahead and commit, you're just going to stay and not cheat.
That's actually true, really agree.
I agree with that.
We don't hear about that very often.
Yeah, because I think about like...
Well, actually, you and I aren't in a relationship.
Oh, yeah. But I was also going to ask Dr. Mike that. Like, is it a generational thing? Do we see one generation that cheats more often than another?
Because when I think of a classic cheater, I think of like a 50-year-old man having a gross mistress.
Me too.
I don't think of a good-looking...
Right.
20-something.
But also, that's not to discount, because obviously we had a listener. There are a lot of people that write us that have been cheated on. So I also think it's geographical, like Dr. Mike was saying.
I think it's kind of like an inverse bell curve. Like, because up until maybe I was like 23, my friends cheated a lot. Yeah. And then now they're not. Maybe like from now until 40, they won't. And then, like you said, older men will do it. Yeah. So maybe it's like there's like a sweet spot where like you're just like less interested in that kind of thing. And again, I don't really foresee like anyone kind of like readapting to wanting to cheat on anyone, but I don't know, like in your mid to late 20s or early 30s, mid 30s, I feel like if you're invested in a relationship, you're just much less likely to do anything that would jeopardize that, right?
I actually completely agree. I think like if we had asked which decade people are least likely to cheat, I think it would be their 30s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's because like marriages are fresh or something like that.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
I mean, we're just
now
speculating. We don't know anything,
shit.
but it seems to make sense the way that the millennials are dating.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe in the end, it'll be a good thing that we are also like weird about commitment and only committing to people that we're like obsessed with.
Right.
Yeah,
or waiting longer to commit, because then it's like, all right,
no one's going to get hurt.
I've had my fun.
Because there was no feeling like being cheated on, so people are just getting smart, not doing it anymore.
You've been cheated on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lauren's been cheated on. We didn't
Wait.
even talk about those instances.
Lauren, what? Tell us about it.
I had an inkling that my boyfriend was a douchebag, so I went through his phone and saw he had sex with his neighbor the night before. Yeah.
And
Dean,
what was
have you
the
ever been
reason?
cheated on?
And then I pretended, I literally read the text, pretended I didn't read the text for about 2 weeks, and was like,
Wow.
I just did everything the normal.
You were living in
I
denial.
cannot believe you
suppressed
had
it so
you slept
hard.
with him and his gnarly penis afterward. He was so gross.
Wait, so what was his reason for cheating? Like, what did he say? Did you ever confront him
I
about
confront
it?
about it all the time to this day, and he'll like laugh and be like, "I didn't cheat." I'm like, "I read the text. You cheated."
He was just denying it.
Just denying it, but also denying in a way where he knew he was caught, and there was no way he could get around it. Yeah.
Dean, have you ever been cheated on?
When I was in high school, yeah,
Yeah.
but nothing since then that I know of, at least.
How'd you find out in high school?
Her like best friends texted me, and I went over to her best. Huh?
That's kind of weird that her best friends
Yeah.
will tell on her.
They more so like texted me like late at night, and they're like, "Hey, do you know where she is?" And I was like, "No, I haven't heard from her in a couple hours. Why?" And they're like, "Oh, she's like missing. We think she's over at this guy's house. Like, come pick us up, and we'll go check." And so I picked up her friends, and we all drove over to the guy's house, and like went into the guy's house, and she was there with him, and it was kind of very, very traumatic for me.
That's
but
so
Oh my
sad,
God.
Dean.
So
What did
sad.
you say, Dean?
I just left. I was like super upset, but I don't know. I was in high school, so I was like young and dumb.
That's making
But
my stomach hurt.
To the best of my knowledge, I have not been since then. I don't know.
Because you can't get any better than you.
Oh no, it can get much, much, much better than me. That is very clear.
All right. Well, Dean,
All right,
thank you
thanks,
for
Dean.
coming on and talking
Dean,
about cheating
thank you
with
so
us.
much. And the 80-20 rule. All right.
Okay.
Bye, Dean.
Bye,
Thanks
Dean.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Wow. What an intriguing podcast, everyone.
Truly. But truly, are there any guys out there who are willing to admit that they cheated and want to talk about it? Because I feel like this is like our ghosting segment. It's like, it sounds like such a good idea, and we'd love to get people to talk about it firsthand, but those people don't ever want to talk.
Right. So thanks to everyone that called in. Thank you to the girl that wrote us. It means so much to us that you guys listen. And we are looking for our next ghost busting segment candidate. So if you have ever been ghosted or you've ghosted someone and you want to call the ghoster or ghostee, please email us at info@heartbrokenanonymous.com. And hopefully this was informative for
I
you
think
guys.
it was totally informative.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Frontal lobe business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It is just that simple business.
Yes, that was such a
That
huge
is
takeaway
weird.
for me.
I don't know. I'd be like, if you just react like that when you're
Then it's
drunk, I'm
not
like, you're
for
probably
you.
not my person.
Yeah, then it's
I
just
know.
not for
but
you.
also the sensation thing, like when he said, if you walk in a bar and a guy's like laughing and hamming it up with everyone, like that is the guy that I'm most attracted to. And that's kind of scary because they're more likely to cheat.
Yep. More interesting people.
But it's okay because I don't have a boyfriend, so.
All right, keep the tweets and the emails coming. The email is info@heartbrokenanonymous.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. Love you. See you next week.
Subscribe.
Rate and subscribe. Love you. Bye.
I don't get it.
Podcast.